It's interview time. You come into the room, there's a couple people in the room, maybe 5 or 6, depends what it is. Make certain that you're sending positive nonverbal message. Good eye contact, act professionally, control your body movements, use your hands, but don't go crazy and scare people, okay? Exhibit good posture, front 2/3 of the chair, practice appropriate eye contact, use gestures effectively so they can include them in the process, smile, and then listen attentively. When somebody's talking, focus your attention on the person that's talking so you gather every single word. My recommendation is always to come in with a notepad and a pen, and you write down questions or the comments you want to ask later on. If they ask you a 2 or 3 part question, you can always write down parts 2 and 3, because a lot of times you get so caught up answering the first part, you forget what else was there. So plan for success in regards to that. Turn off your phone. You don't want to sit down there and have a text hit during the phone. Then obviously don't look at social media during the interview. Don't chew gum. Sound enthusiastic and then interested, but sincere. Try to avoid the empty words. Basically, like you don't want to do that if you can. If you do, because you're nervous, they're going to expect that. Try to reduce that all you can. Be confident, but not arrogant in the process. Sometimes there are some really dumb questions out there. They say weird here, I say dumb in the process. And I picked this up off the internet. If you're a pizza delivery man, how would you benefit from scissors? Okay, if you could sing one song on American Idol, what would it be? There is no intelligence behind these questions. Somebody thinks they're asking an intelligent question. If they got sued in court over that, if you could throw a parade of any caliber through the Zappos office, what type of parade would it be? Okay, I'm sorry, that's got nothing to do, that's germane to the job. You can justify it all you want to, but it doesn't change the fact you may be asked these questions. If you're on an island, you can only bring 3 things. What would you bring? If your box is cereal, what would you be and why? Do you believe in Bigfoot? Yes, I do. Yes. Okay, so why is the tennis ball fuzzy? Okay, because he left it outside in the sun too long and it got moldy. Okay, so there's all kinds of things, and it's so tempting to come back with a sarcastic response to them. You're not supposed to do that in the process. So during the interview, okay, questions to get acquainted, there's a bunch. This is pretty standard. I'm going to give you questions that are normal questions that are excellent. Tell me about yourself. That's a pretty normal questions. I completed, and you go through, give a nice, clear, concise answer. You'll see the outline here. You have, I completed a blank degree with a major and so on. Recently, I worked for, okay, so that's a pretty standard answer. You want to be clear and concise in the process. What do you like to do in your spare time? Okay, what was your college major? What are your greatest strengths? Would you prefer to work by yourself or with others? Why? These are standard questions that are pretty common out there. Okay, why do you want to work here? You need to have a good answer for that. Why are you interested in this position? What do you know about our company? What interests you about our products and services? Know the answer to all these questions. Here's another series of what I call spectacular home run questions. And in all probability, you need to sit down there and include these on your list of potential questions. Your list of potential questions might be 25 questions long, and you know they're going to ask you 6 to 8 of them or 8 to 12 of them. Doesn't matter, practice them anyway. Why should we hire you? Okay, describe the most rewarding experience. Why did you leave your last position? Tell me about your computer skills. Where do you expect to be 5, 10 years from now? One time I made a mistake. I was being interviewed by a chancellor and he wanted to know where I'd be in 5 to 10 years from now. I says, well, like when you retire and you're ready to go, maybe take your job. That wasn't a good thing because of the fact that he did hire me, except he always watched his back if I was out to get him. Oh my gosh. So be careful about how you answer some of those things. What do you think you contribute to this company? Do you plan to continue your education? The answer is yes. Okay, and challenging questions. Describe your ideal work environment. How would your former or current supervisor describe you as an employee? What's your greatest weakness? Okay, how do you define success? All of these are pretty common questions. About the salary, I've had people ask you how much you presently make. Are you willing to take a pay cut? Okay, how much money do you expect to earn and what salary are you looking for? Typically, you're going to have a behavioral question and a situational question. If you were aware that a coworker was falsifying data, what would you do? Squeal, squeal, squeal. That may not be the right answer. Okay, describe a time when you solved a difficult problem. That's a pretty common answer. Both those are very common. Situations, by the time you're done, the STAR technique on behavioral interview, briefly explain the background and the context, describe the problem, what needed to be done. This is a pretty common thing. They may ask you, describe a situation that was difficult to do. What did you do? What tools did you use? And what are the results? Be honest about it in the process. Of course, your results, you want to always quantify it, but you also want it to be as positive as you can. Here's illegal questions. Okay, sometimes people still ask these kind of things. In the United States, these are illegal. There are some foreign companies that come to the United States and they still ask these questions. And it depends on how you're comfortable in answering them. Are you married? That absolutely is inappropriate. Marital status, do you have any disabilities? How old are you? What's your date of birth? How would you respond to that? You're gonna have to think about that on top of it, because they do get asked even in the United States, even though they're illegal. If you sit there and say, well, this is an illegal question, you probably are not gonna get the job in the process, okay? Here's something to ask. Do I need to travel? What training programs do you have available? That's a good question, because then there's know that you want to sit down and become a better employee. Who might be the supervisor be? By the way, that's an important question. What will my duties be? End positive. Summarize your strongest qualifications, show enthusiasm, ask what the next steps are, thank the interviewer or interviewers in the process, and ask for their business card, because if there's one or two, I would send a thank you card in the process. Okay, and you want to make sure you get their name and their title right on the outside of the envelope. So some of the outrageous behavior, these are actually real situations. They ate all the candy while trying to answer questions. They hugged the hiring manager at the end of the interview. They provided a detailed list of how the previous employer angered the candidate. All of these are bad things to do. Okay, blew her nose and lined up the tissue in a nice sequential fashion on the table in front of her, threw his beer can in the outside trash can before coming in. Hopefully he didn't belch in the process too. And a friend came in and said, how much longer before you're done with this? Okay, so those things happen. Make sure they don't happen to you. Create your own potential questions and practice. Be prepared for all and odd questions. Act appropriately and exude positivity, so you are the person they would like to work with next to them the rest of their career. Take care.